Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Vale, and I'm a member of the Board of Directors with Women in Politics. Women in Politics has launched the 2020 hashtag Ask Her campaign as a part of an effort to encourage women to consider running for office in an upcoming election at any level of government. This campaign's primary goal is to support all women who would like to become involved in politics by sharing their experiences, perspectives, and advice to other women who have already entered this arena. We'll hear from women who previously served in public office, from current elected officials, and women who ran in the past. All will offer their advice and experience to help inspire women to enter the race. Above all, we want to achieve the goal of having more women's voices at decision-making tables. So today, we welcome Corrine Rahman. She is a school board trustee with the Thames Valley District School Board. Thank you for joining us today, Corrine.
Thanks for having me.
It's very exciting. So I just to start, so what prompted you to decide to run?
Oh, well, at the time, a new government had just taken over in the province of Ontario and was proposing significant changes to public education. And being a mom of 3 kids in the public education system, I was concerned. And I kept talking to people and telling them, oh my God, there's so many things that are going to happen and we have to do something. And I realized I was the person that had to do something. So that's what prompted me to run.
So how long did you think about it before you commit, to running?
So I guess I'm a bit of a political animal. So I've always been involved in political campaigns. And at the time I was trying to make the decision as to whether or not to take on running a campaign or being involved with a political campaign at the time municipally. And then I think my husband, my support network was like, if this is something you're interested in, why don't you run? And I think that's where that conversation turned into maybe. But it definitely took a lot of people telling me before I actually fully committed to it. And I remember filling out my paperwork and telling myself I had to go this minute and go and drop it off, because if I didn't, I probably wouldn't do it. So I was just so much more comfortable working on someone else's campaign than my own. And that idea, that fear that set in for me about putting myself out there was really something that I really hadn't really considered and thought of before. And so I had to talk myself into it and then take those additional steps and make sure I drove down there. But I had great support and friends that were just pushing for me and family that were really pushing for me. So that helped.
Nice. So tell me about your expectations leading up to the campaign. So did they align with what you experienced?
So my expectations for the campaign itself or for the run itself?
Yeah.
So I guess my expectation was I was going to run myself like I have run other people's campaigns and been involved with other people's campaigns. The effort that I would have put in as a volunteer to somebody else, I was going to put in for myself. And I was going to expect the same commitment that I would have a candidate I was helping. And so for me, what that looked like was telling myself to go out and knock doors. And that's not something trustees usually do. We don't typically go door to door, especially because here in London, that was, a number of wards. I represent wards 2 through 6 here in London.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I had to be selective. I couldn't get to every door, but yeah, getting out there, and that was terrifying. Going door to door. First off, you don't know which houses at the time are public school supporters, so you're going every door.
Right.
And, and it's something that's unexpected, but I had some fantastic conversations at the door. And that to me solidified the reason why I needed to be there.
Yeah, I've canvassed with politicians running in the past, and it's quite an experience at those door-to-door conversations, right? You really get an eye into what people want to see. Can you tell me about any barriers that you faced while campaigning?
Well, there were quite a few, I would
Mhm.
say. I would say, though, the ones that stood out were the barriers I created myself. I mean, the things that I put in my own way. You know, sometimes, and I've, like I said, I've worked in politics in the background of campaigns as a volunteer in the past. And I've always worked with candidates that believed they could do it and believed that they were the right person for the job. And it wasn't till probably a little bit further on into the campaign that I had actually convinced myself that I was the right person for the job and that I was going to win. And so a lot of self-doubt that definitely was at play. That was a barrier for me. You know, other barriers, I think, and obstacles and challenges that came up, I was able to tackle as I went through them. And again, it just came back to having really great support. Um, you know, Women in Politics is one of those great outlets and resources for women that are thinking of running. And for me, it felt like every time I needed a lift, that this organization and others and other women were there. And so, and women I didn't even know. That was the most fascinating part, right? Like, a barrier would present itself and I would reach out to a woman that had run previously or have a coffee with somebody, and it was as if the universe was aligning and things were just, coming together. So I felt very blessed to have experienced what I experienced, and the barriers I hardly even remember at this point.
Interesting. Can you tell me about your experiences as a woman in office, like in your
Yeah.
position?
Well, I mean, school boards and public school boards are a bit different in Ontario, is that we have a lot of women represented on the school board. So we have representation. Um, However, what has really surprised me is, although we have that representation, um, we haven't fully embraced the idea of making the role family friendly. So,
Okay.
being a mom with a young family, my youngest right now is 5, so at the time of the election was 3. Um, you know, uh, Going into it, I thought, oh, well, it's a school board. Of course, we'd, make arrangements to make sure that meetings worked around our schedules. And there are a lot of meetings that happen during the daytime. I also work a full-time job, and so it's a lot of scheduling and a lot of juggling. Um, and I would have thought that was something that we would have done a better job of constructing a way and a system that worked for families.
So what are the supports that you received along the way? So you talked about Women in Politics and other women. What other supports did you have or maybe didn't have that you could have used during your campaign and even now?
Okay, so I'll talk to you about the supports that I had to start. So, and I've shared this story before, so you may have heard it, but one of the first things I did was I reached out to Peggy Sattler, who was a former school board trustee before she became an MPP. Peggy and I don't know each other well, but I sent her an email and I said, hey, Peggy, I'm thinking about running for the school board. I filed my papers and I'm wondering if you would sit down with me, have a coffee, and talk to me about your experience and what I should look forward to on the campaign trail. So I went to meet with Peggy and I showed up and Peggy had a checkbook. And the first thing she did before our meeting started was she wrote me a check. And it was, I get choked up actually even thinking about it, because it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me from a woman I had so much respect for, and see as such a fierce advocate, and such a great representative for our city. And it was the first donation, I think, to my campaign at the time. And I was just really moved by the fact that she did that. And, Other supports, I had the support, I was very lucky to have the support of the 2 trustees that were outgoing at the time, who had helped me and mentored me and shared their experience, and were also quite helpful along the way with financial support, et cetera, and so much advice. So I was very lucky in that respect. Women in Politics was really helpful with getting out my material. You know, in a trustee election, you don't always drop material. But this election, a lot of trustees did, or this past election, I should say. And Women in Politics was amazing in helping female candidates with their own literature drops in different neighborhoods. So I was able to take advantage of that. And I think in total, Women in Politics helped me get out about 1,000 flyers,
Wow.
which was amazing. I had city councilors who also, you know, reached out to me and offered to drop my flyers while they were dropping their flyers, which was excellent. And we were able to pool volunteers. So things like that, that really made a difference. And then I would say, you know, one of the barriers you face is, especially for me, because I wasn't born and raised in London. So I built a lot of community through running through this campaign, was, you know, making those connections. And I had so many parents that were engaged in this election reach out to me and share their experience and share, you know, what they wanted in a member of the Board of Trustees. And it was really, really helpful along the way.
That's amazing. Corrine, thank you so much for participating today. This has been really, really helpful, and I know it is going to be inspiring to a lot of women who are planning to run. So
thanks. Yeah, I will say one last thing. Like, you know, there's nothing special about me. There's nothing that makes me stand out, makes me different. And for a long time, I thought that for politicians, that was the requirement. You had to have all of these character traits and abilities and things like that. And I find that the biggest motivator, the thing that leads to success, is authenticity and passion. And so I'm hoping that women that are authentic and passionate put their name forward.
thank you.